where everyone's concerned about AI taking over their jobs, it's a time to talk about what roles actually is created by AI. One of those roles is prompt engineering. Before we move on to what is prompt engineering, we should start with what is prompt. Prompt is actually a text that you put in the chatbot, such as ChatGPT. So why it is important to write a good prompt? Most of the LLMs, large language models, such as ChatGPT, are trained based on the internet databases. So when you raise your question, ChatGPT goes back to the websites and brings the information back to you. So can we really trust to the internet-based data? Of course not, because there are many conflicting data is out there. So how we can make sure ChatGPT giving us a right answer? So that's why you have to ask a right question first. For example, if I go to the ChatGPT and ask, give me the 10 days itinerary for my trip to Europe, what ChatGPT does, it just goes to the very random domain and brings a plan back for me. But how can I get the best outcome for my question and plan my trip? So I should use the prompt structure. But what is prompt structure? There are many prompt structures out there, like a formula that you put together, but I put a very basic and core one together that you can remember whenever you want to start your conversation with a ChatGPT. And I'm hoping that it's become like a practice for you that you won't really need to remember like formula. So the very basic prompt structure is instruction plus context plus format plus example. So let's start with an instruction. So what is an instruction? Instruction is the action that you should put in front of your sentence, and it should be like analyze, give, process, something as an action that you want ChatGPT to do it for you. The next one is the context. Context is the information that you give to ChatGPT. The more you put in, obviously, the better result you would get. But how much you want to put in there, you just can't sit and type and type. So in order to answer that question on how much we should put into the ChatGPT, I put 3 questions together that I normally ask myself when I'm raising a prompt to the ChatGPT. Let's review them. Question 1 is, what is the background? I'll just give ChatGPT a little bit of history. Question 2 is, what environment I'm expecting the answer to come from? And question 3 is the goal. Let's go back to the question that I originally asked from ChatGPT. I'm 30 years old, interested in fashion and nature, and less into museums. So this is the background that I'm giving to the ChatGPT. Then I move to the environment. I want to go to Paris, Switzerland, and Italy for 14 days. This is the environment that I want to go to. And lastly, this is my goal. I want an itinerary that tells me how many days to spend in each country. In this case, I've given ChatGPT more detailed information and got the ChatGPT to find the best match from all the data sets behind itself and brings the answer that is more closer to my need. That's why it's very important to write the correct prompt. Now let's move into the third part of the formula, which is the format. It is optional, but personally, I don't want to receive a big chunk of text that I read through. So I normally tell ChatGPT I want it in a bullet point, or I want it in an Excel format, or any form or shape. So it makes my life easier when I receive the answer from the ChatGPT. And finally, example. So if I can share the itinerary from my last trip, I can feed it to the ChatGPT and say, hey, use this format and give the answer in the same format. So it makes my life easier. So it is optional, but it's very handy. Now we know what is prompt and why it is important to raise a good prompt. Is a time to talk about the role of prompt engineering. So what actually prompt engineers do? So prompt engineers mostly work in 2 types of companies. One, the company is actually using the LLMs, large language models, to generate AI solutions. And number 2, the companies like OpenAI who actually build LLMs. So let's get into each of them and see what actually they do. Let's say the government want to use the healthcare document from the Western Australia Hospital. So what will be the process for this project? The very first process should be extracting the text from the documents and then store those texts into the data source and then define a prompt. So in this case, government would hire prompt engineers to use the LLM to generate those AI solutions. Example, extract the illness name, extract the medication's name, the dosage, the frequency. So the prompt engineer should define those prompts, plus understanding LLMs, and also should be good in English, of course. So these are the requirements of a prompt engineer for this project. Now let's move into the prompt engineering roles in the companies who actually build large language models, such as OpenAI. Let's say OpenAI is going to release GPT-20. So before this goes to the public, the prompt engineers should ask questions to make sure the answers that are coming from the LLM is correct and accurate. Of course, they're not sitting there and asking every single questions from the LLMs. So they use methods for making sure the answer is correct. Example, they use cosine similarity, which means comparing the two paragraphs based on the semantic meaning of the paragraphs. Finally, if you're asking me what are the requirements for being a prompt engineer, I would say you should have a good understanding about how LLM works, you should know the basic of writing a code, you should be good in English, and you should have an analytical brain because you're analyzing lots of methods. So I hope I could help you to understand what is prompt engineering, and why it is important to raise a good prompt. So if you like this video, please subscribe to our channel and like this video and share it to your friends. Thank you.